You hear it on the news all the time, right? GDP is up. The economy is shrinking. But what is that number? What does it actually mean? Well, today, we're going to break down what is, without a doubt, one of the most important numbers in all of economics, gross domestic product. You know it as GDP.
Just think about that for a second. How would you even start to put a single price tag on an entire country's economy? I mean, we're talking about millions of people, millions of businesses, all buying and selling stuff every single day. It sounds kind of impossible, right? Well, that massive challenge is the exact problem that GDP was created to solve.
So, let's start with the basics. Think of this first part as getting a quick snapshot of the economy. We're going to get the official definition and find out who exactly is in charge of keeping score for an economy worth trillions and trillions of dollars.
Okay, so here it is, the official definition. Basically, GDP is like the total price tag for everything a country makes over a certain period, usually a quarter or a year. From the coffee you bought this morning to the car rolling off an assembly line, if it's a final product or service made within that country's borders, it gets counted. It's really the broadest look we can get at a nation's economic health. And this isn't just some number people guess at. Oh no, in the United States, the official scorekeeper is the Bureau of Economic Analysis, or the BEA. These are the folks who dive into mountains of data to calculate this one single figure. So when you hear about US GDP, it's coming from them.
All right, so it's a huge number, calculated by a government agency. Got it. But why should you care? I mean, really, why does it matter to you? Well, it turns out this number has a massive impact on everything, from your job to the big policies that shape the entire country. See, GDP isn't just for economists to debate. The White House and Congress look at it when they're deciding how to spend money or what to do with taxes. The Federal Reserve, they're watching it like a hawk to decide on interest rates, which affects your mortgage and credit card rates. And businesses, big and small, use it to decide if it's a good time to expand, to invest, and most importantly, to hire more people. This number really does influence the big decisions that hit your wallet.
So how in the world do they actually calculate this thing? Well, there are two main ways to do it. We're going to start with the one that's probably the most intuitive. You just add up all the spending. Simple as that.
And here it is, one of the most famous equations in economics. Now I know, it looks a little intimidating, but I promise you, it's just a simple roadmap for adding up all that spending. So let's break down what each of these letters actually stands for.
First up, we've got C for consumption. That's us. It's you and me and what we all spend on, well, everything. Then there's G for government spending on things like roads, schools, and defense. I is for investment. That's what businesses spend on new factories, software, and equipment. And finally, you have this little bit in parentheses, X minus M. That's net exports. We take everything we sell to other countries, our exports, and we subtract everything we buy from them, our imports. You add all that up, and boom, you've got GDP.
Okay, so that's one way to look at it, by tracking all the spending. But there's a whole other side to this. Instead of looking at who's spending the money, we can flip it around and look at who's earning it. This is what's called the income approach.
And to understand this, you just have to grasp this one simple but really powerful idea. Every single dollar that someone spends becomes a dollar of income for someone else. It has to. The money you spend on your coffee, that's income for the coffee shop and wages for the barista. Your rent payment is income for your landlord. Spending and income are just two sides of the very same coin.
And here's how they stack up. The spending approach, the one we just learned, asks who's doing the buying. But the income approach asks who's doing the earning. So it adds up all the wages paid to workers, all the profits earned by companies, the taxes collected by the government, and this other thing called depreciation, which is basically an estimate for the wear and tear on our stuff.
Now, in a perfect world, on paper, these two methods would give you the exact same number, down to the penny. But the real world is messy, right? The data comes from all different places, so there's almost always a tiny difference, which economists just call a statistical discrepancy. And for what it's worth, the BEA generally considers the spending side data to be a bit more reliable.
Okay, as you can probably imagine, deciding what officially gets counted in an economy this massive, it's complicated. There are a lot of gray areas. So the BEA has a very detailed set of rules, kind of like a rule book for the game, to make sure the count is consistent and accurate every single time.
So let's look at just a few of the big rules. First, there's something called the production boundary. This basically decides what counts as production. For instance, cooking dinner at home for your family is out, but that same meal sold at a restaurant is in. Second, to avoid double counting, they only count the value of final goods. Think about a new car. You don't count the steel, then the tires, and then the car. The price of the car already includes all that stuff. And third, they do something called imputations. This is where they have to estimate the value of something when no money actually changes hands. A classic example is homeownership. They estimate what you would be paying in rent for your own home and add that value to GDP.
So, when you put it all together, the definitions, the calculations, all those little rules, what you get is this one powerful number that has completely changed how we see and understand our economy.
And, this isn't just me saying it's a big deal. The U.S. Department of Commerce once said that developing GDP was one of the great inventions of the 20th century. I mean, think about that. It gave us, for the very first time, a real, comprehensive way to measure our economic engine.
But, and this is so important, we have to remember what GDP is not. It's a measure of production. It's not a measure of well-being. It tells us how big the economic pie is, but it doesn't tell us how that pie gets sliced up, or if we're wrecking the planet to bake it. Things like happiness, a clean environment, or inequality, they're just not in the equation. So the real question to leave you with is this. If GDP is telling us the size of the engine, what other numbers do we need to tell us if we're actually on the right road?